Joining me now is Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville. He is a member of the Senate Armed Services, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, and Health Committee. Senator, thanks very much for being here. Your reaction to this report?
Well, disastrous. I've got to know President Trump's detail over the last couple of years. Maria, been very close with him, spent hours with him on the golf course, in the clubhouse. They're first class, they're professional, they work hard. It's a numbers game. But this report goes back to leadership of the Secret Service, leadership of the FBI, leadership of the CIA. It changed back during the Democrat-controlled White House back in the early 2010-11 when they took people that actually worked in these areas. They put in bureaucrats. And they put these bureaucrats in, and they totally changed all 3 or 4 of these entities in terms of how things are run. DEI is up front, close and personal. Unfortunately, you know, I'd love to have been a professional quarterback, but I wasn't. I didn't have the ability to do that. We're putting people in jobs that can't do these jobs, and if it has anything to do with law enforcement, military, anything to do with protecting American citizens like the Secret Service, we got to get away from this affirmative action, DEI, and put the best people in charge.
Great point. And by the way, Coach, we have a lot of questions about that as well. We're going to get to that coming up in terms of you wanting to be a quarterback. Look, I want to get into Israel, though, first. Despite Israel's war against Hamas and Iranian proxies and Iran being linked to separate assassination plots against President Trump, the U.S. is still allowing Iranian leaders into the country. The president of Iran speaking at the UN on Tuesday. I guess we had to issue him a visa for that. Trump spoke about this on the threats to his life. Watch this.
We have the president of Iran in our country this week. We have large security forces guarding him, and yet they're threatening our former president and the leading candidate to become the next president of the United States. Certainly a strange set of circumstances.
And, Senator, I have a letter here that Tom Cotton wrote and Mitch McConnell to President Biden. I sent the note yesterday. He writes, "We write to strongly condemn your administration's continued delay in providing critical military equipment and weapons to our ally Israel in the midst of an existential war. We have reason to believe your administration is currently delaying 3 critical types of military weapons or equipment." He goes on to name them: the Mk-84 bomb, the Apache attack helicopter, the Caterpillar D9 tractors. What is the U.S. doing in terms of its support for Israel right now? Or are they once again delaying weapons?
Oh, they're delaying weapons. They're riding the fence, Maria. Election coming up. They don't want to be seen as helping Israel because they need all these kids' votes all over the country. The number one thing that all these young people are looking at, these millennials, these Generation Z and X, they are on the Palestinian side. They're on Hamas's side. And so they are riding the fence as much as they possibly can. I'm with President Trump on Iran, but, you know, the Ayatollah coming to United States. But one thing you always need to understand, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. We need to know where he stands. And you also saw the UN. He'd probably got a bigger ovation than if Netanyahu were to come. We know where they stand. They're globalists. They're not on Israel's side. This is not a birthday party Israel's fighting for. They're fighting for their damn country and the well-being and the existence of the Israel state. So Biden, Harris, they're taking this very lightly, but they're riding the fence. It's going to get them in trouble. It's going to get them beat at the polls.
Well, I mean, look, you make a good point, because now I'm looking at this story here, whereas we understand that the House has okayed the GOP resolution condemning Biden, Harris over the Afghanistan exit. Now, I mean, Vice President Kamala Harris sat for her first solo interview since launching her presidential campaign, and she didn't say much. She struggled to explain any economic plans and certainly stayed far away from foreign policy, including Afghanistan. Watch this.
If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share.
Even MSNBC's host called out Harris's non-answers after the sit-down. Senator, watch.
Here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around, if the GOP is controlling the Senate, can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from? You know, to expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do. And she says, we just have to do it.
So what about that, Senator? I mean, all of this just one day after former President Trump, by the way, gave a detailed speech on his tax and manufacturing plans, explaining how he'll bring production back to America, Senator.
Embarrassing, Maria. We all know that. We've seen that. They're trying to get her elected the worst possible candidate they could put there. But in 90 days, they're trying to get her across the finish line. She's the first ever AI presidential candidate, all done by social media, TV, radio. They're doing everything they possibly can. They'll spend billions of dollars to get her across the line. She is the worst candidate. There's some Democrat senators up here that are wondering, how in the world did she get in front of me? I've been up here forever. I know the policies. I know how to get things done. No chance. Didn't talk to them. She's the one they wanted because they can control her. That's what it's all about.
Well, Senator, what about these polls? They're incredibly tight, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, and yet we're not getting any information about any policies from Kamala. And we've got all of these missteps. I've got another letter here to Alejandro Mayorkas and Ronald Rowe, acting director of the Secret Service, from the Speaker of the House, basically talking about these failures in the Secret Service. Alejandro Mayorkas is overseeing all of this. He's overseeing the Secret Service. He's overseeing the wide open border, 10 million illegals in the country in the last 3.5 years. Will there be any accountability for Alejandro Mayorkas in the Senate?
Maria, he's disappeared. If you notice this the last few months, he has not been anywhere. They told him to hide. We don't want you out there having to talk about this. Same thing with Kamala. They don't want her talking about it. They're letting the mainstream media push their agenda. But the problem they've got is things are coming out now. We're starting to understand. People understand, wait a minute, we need to hear this from her. What was that she was talking about? I didn't understand it. How in the world is she going to be the leader of the free world if she can't give you basic 101 economics? It's embarrassing that we would even put her in this situation. She should drop out today and let somebody else run.
No.
I don't know how they plan on getting her across the finish line. President Trump's going to win this. The polls are wrong. Everywhere I go, everybody's saying, Coach, we have to get President Trump across the line.
Yeah, really. I mean, you want to say anything about this upcoming Georgia-Bama game, Coach?
Well, it's going to be close. I'm going with President Trump. It's going to be hard to beat Bama in Tuscaloosa. I had a hard time. I did a couple of times, but it's hard to beat them there.
Boom. All right. Senator, good to see you this morning. Thank you, sir. Tommy Tuberville in D.C.